Too often, I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again, barefaced lies. Too often, I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Think you wouldn't want where it's all gonna end, yeah. Think you think we never want to defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced lies.
Barefaced lies. Barefaced lies.
Hey Sean, you got a party, got that little party going on there. Keep to the left, you can't think right, so everything you do goes wrong, yeah. Incompetence just leads to disaster. Corruption brings it on even faster. What you say?
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Think you wouldn't want where it's all gonna end, yeah. Think you think we never want to defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Think you wouldn't want where it's all gonna end, yeah. Think you think we never want to defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced lies.
Barefaced lies. Barefaced lies.
Comrades, you always told us you'd build us all a new Jerusalem, yeah. You talk the talk, but when you walk, you only leave a crooked line there. And you don't see the trouble that's brewing, if all you do is just what you're doing.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Think you wouldn't want where it's all gonna end, yeah. Think you think we never want to defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced lies.
Is this where you wanna be? Debt and childhood poverty. Won't somebody set us free from this corrupt kleptocracy? Oh yeah.
Barefaced lies.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Think you wouldn't want where it's all gonna end, yeah. Think you think we never want to defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Think you wouldn't want where it's all gonna end, yeah. Think you think we never want to defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Think you wouldn't want where it's all gonna end, yeah. Think you think we never want to defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011 he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. Very good evening. No, maybe not. Let me see if I can get my camera on. How bizarre. How is that? Very, very good evening. My apologies. My my equipment is definitely on its way out. I'll just wait for people to catch up with me, and we'll get started. Yeah, indeed. I have been. It's like an old car. My setup. I've got it set up, and I know if I tinker with it, it will mess around. And I made the mistake of trying to do something with it last night, trying to edit the video with it last night, and it was just it just wasn't having it. I don't think it's anything that a techie could solve, I'm afraid, Rachel. It's what I've got is a very loved Mac. It's an old Mac, for a 27-inch Mac. I bought in 2015. I bought it, and it's been with me through thick and thin, really. And it's this big and this bulky. When the police raided my house and took all my other stuff, they never took this big Mac with them because it was just too cumbersome, and there's too many wires hanging out the back of it, I think. So it wasn't for going. But yeah, no, it's been with me. You know, when something's been with you, and I'm so reluctant to give up on it. So I'm not sure what's happening with it. If I'm honest with you, but I'll get someone out to come and look at it, because I'm determined to persevere with it and see it through. And yes, indeed. Seeing as though he time travelled back 4 years or 5 years from when he first met me and bought it me. So maybe indeed. They gave me stuff back, mate, in the end, and I just didn't trust it. Some of it, I've got like this old iPad right in front of me. You can't see. I completely wiped, but the computer I sold and upgraded for the one I've got. So I sold the computer in the laptop, and the other stuff was just pointless. They had it for, I think it was 3 years they had it for, mate. So by the time I got it back, like the phone and the other stuff, it just went. They took my stuff away, and it was clear. Blaine, I think it was called, Detective Inspector Blaine, he was called. I'm pretty sure, was it Kenny Blaine? It might have been someone else. I've lost track of the number of police officers who followed me in, but it was very clear. It was very clear that what they were out to do was to stop me. From doing this. Well, we're here. I can see myself on the screen. I'm presuming you can see me. Thank you for the Yvonne, I think it was, who I did see a super chat flash up. I hope I've recognised that in the way it's meant to be done. I was here yesterday. I'm here again today. For those who are new to me, my name is Raja Mia, and I pulled together these, I call them transmissions. We were winding them up right from the outset. We're like, you know, we regardless of you treating us as riffraff, we will conduct ourselves in a way in which, well, if we were successful, we are successful in years to come, they will know this for what it is. So I call them transmissions. You was sat in my house when 3 coppers turned up and then started getting aggressive. It's just part of the course now, I'm afraid. Part of the course. It's not that I'm a hoarder, Paul. I like this old Mac. And this setup, it's got me through thick and thin. The iPad in front of me, you can't see that I bring everything up on and play, is I think it was the original iPad Pro. So that goes back to what, 2016, 2017, I think. Thank you, Lee. If you are, and I'm not going to touch anything else on the computer, I've closed all the other programs down. If you are new to me, please do consider subscribing to Redwall and the Rabble. It is completely free, 100% free. I've lost it on my thing, so I'm presuming I can't. I'm not going to touch anything. It's I can't find it, so I've not got it here. For all favorite super chat, so that's interesting. It's done something anyway. It's lost my ability to bring up my thing, but you all know it by now. redwallandtherabble.co.uk, or you can buy me a coffee. You've got the links. You've got the links on your screen. At the very least, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's completely free. And thank you for, I think, about a dozen of you last night when I asked, signed up to the Facebook page. Most of you haven't. I don't know why. I don't know what I can do to convince you to just take 2 seconds just to click something on the top of the Facebook page, because I know thousands of you, tens of thousands of you, hundreds of thousands of you actually engage in my content on Facebook and on X. We do okay, but Facebook, it's embarrassing. No, and it's not the people who don't do Facebook. The people who do Facebook, no, they know full well, because they've got it sat in their inbox. But someone messaged me yesterday. I didn't notice it. The notifications. You don't need a notification. You just go on the Records at 9 page, and at the top it says follow, and just follow it. And they tried, and one of the reasons we stay on Facebook, Paul, there's 2 main reasons. One is there is an elderly demographic who follow this work who just don't do X, and it was a challenge convincing them at the time we first started transmitting on YouTube for them to come over to YouTube. And the reason we first started transmitting on YouTube was the councils, lawyers, the police, and a guy called Neil Wilby, absolute, calls himself an investigative journalist. He's nothing of the sort. He was in the pockets of the Labour Party at the time. They had a concerted effort to ban me on Facebook, and there were periods where Facebook had banned me for simply conveying what we now know as the truth. So I get that some of you don't do Facebook, but that's why we still do Facebook. One is because they wanted rid of us, and 2, actually the truth is there's a demographic of elderly people who, if we didn't do Facebook, they wouldn't access the work, and they'd likely, like Julie, not have come across me. Indeed, Ian, the malicious blogger and proven liar, remember. Haven't we been on a journey? Well, we're going to go on another one tonight. Let me just get my breath back. And it was more local for me. It was more local for all of us at the time. Let me get my breath back. So please, if you can, subscribe. I had a couple of subscribers last night to the newsletter, the webpage, redwallandtherabble.co.uk. But if you could, it would be extremely useful to me. As I say, it is free. You only pay if you can afford to do so. There's a lady from Scotland who dropped me a message, upset, I think, with herself, and there was no need to be. she couldn't, she took out a paid subscription and she couldn't pay because her son had a stroke and her brother's had a heart attack, and it was just a horrible story. I felt for her. There's no need for people to pay who can't afford to pay. We took the decision in January to go completely free, and we've done well. We've made back. It took us 4 months, but we've made back all the numbers that we'd lost. So if I'm smiling, I'm relieved. I'm completely relieved, and if I'm laughing, it's because as I put out a post earlier today, someone is claiming to have bankrolled me. So please, maybe if you could bankroll me a new Mac, I'll just use this. It'll get relegated to my desk in a separate part of my living room where I do most of my writing. This area of the space I only turn on when I do this work. Otherwise, it gathers dust. There you go. See, that's it. I'm on Facebook and YouTube, but see much on YouTube. See much on YouTube unless shared on Facebook first. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't mean it as a criticism. It was just an understanding. There was a point where we'd had enough and we were quitting Facebook, and then some people got in touch with me and they were genuinely upset. And it's only over a period of time. It is only over a period of time where I truly recognised what had been created around this, and we'd built a community up, and it meant something. It still means something to so many of you, because for too long, too many of us feel useless and unable to impact change in any meaningful way. So yeah, that's why we went back. Yeah, I've got a guy. Mudge will do all that for me. Yeah, I'm going to drop him a message. But thanks for the offer, Rachel. That's exactly what I'll do, and I'll use it to type. I'll just use it to type and do all my writing. I only use Google, whatever it's called, Docs now. I remember the days of Microsoft Office and stuff, long gone. I just use Google Docs now. It's completely free, and I do all of my work on that. So that's what I'll do. Although this machine, probably, that might be something to do with it as well. It just, anytime I try and use any of the editing software, it just, the fan, I can hear the fan start, and when the fan starts, and that's just the shame of all of it, isn't it, Julie? That it had to, that powerlessness wasn't accidental. I've come to genuinely believe it is intentional. And it's also intentional that they maneuvered you in such a way. Well, the only options you had was what was described as the far right. And then it was easy for them then to, disempower you even further. So it was a strategy, and it worked for them until now. Okay, let's get on with this evening's broadcast. I want to play a little Channel 4 thing. I'm going to do a little bit on Bradford first. I'm going to do a little bit on Bradford, and then I will move on to the main segment about the naming of names and Maggie Oliver and her private prosecutions. And information you should know, but you don't know because of the way it was communicated and hidden in plain sight. So, fingers crossed, I'm going to press a button. Ah, perfect. Press play.
For all the reports and inquiries into grooming gangs over the years, across England and Wales, the findings are all too familiar. An utter failure to protect vulnerable young girls from being sexually abused and raped. In Rochdale, an acknowledgement came in 2013 that children were left at the mercy of gangs.
There were many failings for these young people over many years, absolutely.
Then in Rotherham, where the exploitation of young girls in care dates back to the 1980s.
How sorry I am that the council failed in its services in the past.
Apology after apology for not stopping gangs of mostly British Pakistani men from abusing girls. In Oxford, some were as young as 13.
We know we didn't stop this quickly enough, and there's nothing we can say that will change that.
Recently, Oldham has been at the centre of the grooming debate reignited by Elon Musk. A local review there in 2022 laid bare the failings of the council and the police.
We as Greater Manchester are deeply sorry that they went through what they did.
And in Telford it was the children rather than perpetrators often blamed.
I want to say very clearly that we are sorry. We're sorry for failing to adequately protect.
Yet some victims of these scandals point to another place, Bradford, as a key link in grooming network. Abuse started in Rotherham. She was later trafficked to Bristol by men from Bradford.
It is our I think if they open that Pandora's box in Bradford, it's going to be on a huge scale that they'll not be able to control.
There has already been an independent national inquiry into child sexual abuse. Its recommendations came out in 2022 and the government's still working to implement them, which is why they resisted pressure for a national review this January. Instead, the Home Secretary announced plans for local inquiries in 5 areas and today confirmed that they will still go ahead after criticism that the measures have been watered down to allow local authorities to choose whether they want an inquiry or not.
Before this week's update, we sat down with MP Robbie Moore in his Keighley constituency, part of the Bradford district, where he says a full inquiry is long overdue.
You have the different organisations effectively saying, well, that other organisation is accountable. So therefore, the state is not helping these victims as strongly as it should do, and that's why a specific inquiry on this issue will help address that.
Isn't it more important, though, that you don't risk the victims being failed again with an inquiry that is rushed into?
Of course, that is always a risk. But the reality of it is, out of all of the victims that I've been speaking to, is that they still feel that there is not significant enough progress.
Marlon agrees. His daughter Scarlett was a victim of grooming. She was trafficked from Greater Manchester to Bradford.
One of my concerns around this grooming, when you start looking at these areas, and also the areas where girls are being taken to Bradford, they all appear to be Labour-run councils, which really, really concerns me that the government are not going to do an inquiry into any of these areas, including Bradford.
Why are you allowing councils to mark their own homework?
Well, child sexual exploitation, grooming gangs, these are the most vile crimes. Sadly, there's been a lot of misinformation, including party political misinformation, but we're increasing support for local inquiries, starting with Oldham's independent inquiry that's taking place. We've got a national audit underway, and crucially, most important of all, we're increasing the police investigations into this vile crime alongside stronger laws.
So there could still be a local inquiry in Bradford, although the council there doesn't think one is necessary. It says it's previously investigated grooming in the area and is now focused on practical and meaningful action, rather than paying someone to write another report.
The pain is still raw, and they need to know who knew about this, who was responsible.
Though for the social worker who helped expose the Rotherham grooming scandal, inquiries done properly can bring about closure.
What we keep forgetting when we talk about inquiries, we're not just talking about what happened in the past. Child sexual exploitation is still going on, children are still being abused, trafficked, tortured, gang rapes across the UK.
An exclusive data obtained by Channel 4 News shows more than 3,500 children in England are at risk of sexual exploitation, which includes offences like coercion and online abuse, as well as grooming by gangs. The full extent of the grooming scandal may never be known. Without further inquiries, though, some survivors fear they'll never get proper answers and proper accountability.
All done, Sue?
Yep, and not just with your hair, with the help of Zero Accounting.
Okay, again, apologies for the cutting in and out. I'm gonna get the. There are no millionaires, I'm afraid. I'm gonna get the credit card out, and I will have to update this machine. It's had it, I think. I've been running it, and the last few times I've not been turning it off. Because it's been working, and I sent it off today for something, and my apologies. The Channel 4 clip I wanted to show you for a couple of reasons. It came out in January, I think, but there's a couple of reasons I wanted to share with you. One is it's in Channel 4, which is a traditional left-leaning sort of mainstream media publication, and they've, you can see that I think it was a fair piece. And they put in Yvette Cooper's misinformation claim for you to pick up on that. That was done on purpose, the editing in the way it was. So the reference there really was, they put a circle around Bradford and drew this map and said Bradford from Telford, Oxford. They missed the city out, and it's so obvious. For one, they never put Manchester in there, and Manchester is there as well, but Birmingham. It went up the M6, M6, it went up the M6, Sheffield, M1 Sheffield, M6, and towards the West Yorkshire, South Yorkshire sort of towns, the Lancashire towns. And these people have omitted it on purpose. And you've got Robbie Moore, who's the Conservative MP for one of the outlying Rochdale areas, and not Rochdale areas, sorry, Bradford areas. And he's been campaigning relentlessly. And here's what he had to say today.
The week in Bradford, we've seen council leaders once again reject my calls for a full rape gangs inquiry. An ex-police officer threatened with arrest for investigating these horrific crimes, and now a judge blocking the release of official transcripts from a major rape gang trial in Bradford. So can the Lord Chancellor explain why our justice system is being used to block the truth about these trials?
Well, what I would say to the honourable gentleman is it's not appropriate in these difficult cases to misrepresent what the correct position is. The Home Secretary has already set out in this House and answered questions on our approach to the grooming gangs issue and the local inquiries. And on court transcripts, we are piloting AI technology for accuracy so that we can, in future, we hope, be able to produce transcripts. At the moment, the costs are prohibitive and the accuracy is not there with the technology that is available.
So the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, is claiming it was to do with AI technology. It's an outright lie, because the judge said it's not in the public interest. The judge didn't say anything about AI technology and the AI technology not being good enough as to why we can't release court transcripts. The judge said it's not in the national interest. So these people are now just outright lying in Parliament. And what you've got to understand is this is a war, essentially a war. And it's been fought on a number of fronts. One is the towns and cities where we know it took place and they've done inquiries. and those inquiries have shown serious failings, and no one's been held to account. Which is now where Maggie Oliver is, in terms of private prosecutions. Then you've got the towns and cities where we know it's took place, and they are refusing inquiries into those towns and cities. Bradford, yes, he's the MP for Keighley, thank you. Bradford being, you know, ground zero for many people. And then you've got Birmingham, which includes Jess Phillips's backyard, and I have got a dossier of information on Birmingham, and I will go through it with you as soon as I've sorted my equipment out. I'll go through it with you, and you'll see that. Now, Jess Phillips, the safeguarding minister for safeguarding girls, won't speak out against the cover-up of the gang rape of little white girls in her own city. So you've got that as a second element. One is the cover-up in the towns and cities where it has took place, where no one's been held accountable. Two, the prevention of investigating the places where we know it happened. Bradford, Birmingham, so on. Leeds. And then you've got the actual suppression, censorship and suppression of the evidence of what took place once these people have been found guilty. And that's what these court transcripts are, and the denial of these court transcripts is all about. They're just hiding the public documents, public information. These weren't closed secret courts. These were courts where, you know, people could go in, and for the Justice Minister to blame AI technology for holding things up is outrageous. Court transcripts have been made available from long before I have been born. And if there is a cost, if the cost was linked to it, then they should have said, you know what, you want the court transcripts for the Bradford grooming gang case, which is the one that was denied for, it'll cost you £10,000. I guarantee you that £10,000 would have been raised in under an hour by members of the public on a crowdfunder. It's got nothing to do with cost. It's got nothing to do with AI. It's got everything to do with suppression of what is a national scandal. And they're petrified. They're petrified. I think it's gone past because they think we're stupid, Callum, and I'm going to press this and hope it works because they think we're stupid. I think it's gone past that. I think it's now somewhere else completely. It's now somewhere else completely. They don't even believe the lies that are coming out of their mouths. Thanks, Arthur. What about Hansard? Indeed. You know, where everything in Parliament is transcribed, yeah? That was long before AI. Okay. So, I now want to move on to Maggie Oliver. I want to play something first. This is from a press release, an extract from a press release last January, and I shared this last January. It was to do with the Operation Augusta sort of findings and the Rochdale findings, and Maggie Oliver got up and spoke, and they turned the mic off on the section they spoke. And at first I thought they turned the mic off because she mentioned someone's names that she shouldn't have. But then I realised that they turned it off for all of the content, and there was something very specific she said. So I want you to listen to this whilst I bring it up.
Please, Mr. Watson, allow some of the survivors of Operation Augusta, Operation Green Jacket, to be interviewed by the assurance review team, because at the moment your legal department is not allowing them to speak to the review team. So that is something which they need to hear in order to assess properly where we go in the future. Organisations like the police, like Rochdale Council, like the Crown Prosecution Service are powerful organisations. And a little voice like mine or Sarah's, we are squashed. And if we don't have any chance of being heard, how on earth would a child like or Amber or all these other children, they must be heard and we must see change. And I would ask the media to shine a spotlight on those corners that normally don't get attention, because it's only with your help and public support and public outrage continuing that really we will see the changes that we must have if we're going to avoid another report like this in 10 years.
Okay, I'm going to play that again because I want you to hear it again.
And please, Mr. Watson, allow some of the survivors of Operation Augusta, Operation Green Jacket, to be interviewed by the assurance review team, because at the moment your legal department is not allowing them to speak to the review team. So that is something which they need to hear in order to assess properly where we go in the future. Organisations like the police, like Rochdale Council, like the Crown Prosecution Service are powerful organisations. And a little voice like mine or Sarah's, we are squashed. And if we don't have any chance of being heard, how on earth would a child like or Amber or all these other children, they must be heard and we must see change. And I would ask the media to shine a spotlight on those corners that normally don't get attention, because it's only with your help and public support and public outrage continuing that really we will see the changes that we must have if we're going to avoid another report like this in 10 years.
In front of her, in front of Maggie Oliver, was sat Andy Burnham, or at the side of her was Andy Burnham. And Mr. Watson, of course, is the Chief Constable of Greater Manchester Police. And she stood up last year and outright said that the police's legal team were preventing survivors from testifying and giving evidence. It's not don't listen to the survivors. It's we've launched an investigation and the police's legal team are preventing survivors from giving evidence. No one's picked up on it. I mean, we did last year, but who are we? We're just a small team of people. And who's blocking the media? Well, the media are complicit. If you follow the work Yvonne, you'll also know that the BBC are complicit in this. And there's a narrative to be spun, which is let's move on. Historical mistakes from the past, let's move on. Yes, and remember, the Home Secretary claimed it was misinformation. So is this misinformation? Is the police's legal team preventing survivors from testifying? And that's why a public inquiry would get to that, because the police's legal team in a public inquiry wouldn't be able to prevent survivors from testifying because of the powers it would have. So let me give you some wider context into how Maggie Oliver got to this point last year and how frustrated she's been, and she's now got to a place. And this is a woman who came through the system, remember, and she's now in a position where she is effectively taking out what? Private prosecutions, isn't she? Or wants to. So here's what you need to understand. She's had enough. You need to understand this about cover-ups, political cover-ups. Because I don't think there's anyone left now in this country who believes this is anything other than a cover-up. If there is, tell me. If there's anyone left in this country who believes this is barefaced lies and not a cover-up, then tell me. That press conference was in the 9:30 in the morning, I think. Rochdale Town Hall or at the Mayor's office or somewhere like that. You need to understand, cover-ups don't happen in dramatic midnight meetings with shadowy figures. They happen in broad daylight through bureaucratic obstruction, carefully edited footage, media manipulation, and of course limited investigations that are designed to fail from the start. It is theatre. It is theatre that they've designed, they've orchestrated with an outcome in mind. And that's exactly what's been happening with Andy Burnham's assurance reviews right from the outset. If you followed me, I've been vocally critical of Andy Burnham because I was a supporter of Andy Burnham. I thought better of him with his experience from Hillsborough, but he has been instrumental in setting up something that is designed to fail or fall short or not get to the truth. So you saw Maggie Oliver take to the podium at his press release following the Rochdale Grooming review, and this was, I think, part 3. I think he had instalments. So he had it over 3 or 4 instalments. This was part 3 in a predictable pattern, where just like in Manchester and Oldham before it, his experts, they should be named. You need to know the names of these people because they are neck deep in it. Malcolm Newsom and Gary Ridgway. Newsom was in Rotherham at the time. That's where he comes from, investigating over there. And Ridgway, of course, is an ex-copper. They apparently yet again found zero evidence of a cover-up and yet again failed to name a single person who was culpable for failings. Institutional failings, I think Burnham says. No. Institutions do not make decisions, people make decisions. So I went off and found the unedited footage, which is what you've just listened to, because that statement, that clip of the statement, all the sound had been muted at the time. I watched it live, all the sound had been muted, and I thought, how strange is that? And there were... And what Maggie Oliver revealed, and I wanted you to hear it, which is why I played it twice, was that Greater Manchester's legal team actively blocked survivors from giving evidence to the review. It would take us another 12 months, brutal months. Remember, during this period, I'm under investigation. I'm charged. I'm awaiting trial. Another 12 brutal months before the King of the North and want to be Prime Minister admitted that his review let this charade continue until he had... We should be back, sorry. Sorry so much. I'll have a Vimto. I'll wipe the computer and see if that makes any difference before I go and spend I think £1,500 or so. So I'll count the piggy bank, and I'll try again one more time, I think, after this before I go and spend that money. So I'll get it all tidied up and cleaned up and see if that makes any difference. I run on Macs, by the way. I don't run on PCs. I've not run on PCs for 20 years, so all my stuff is geared for Macs. So, yeah, but it lasted. My machines lasted. I think 10 years is a good stint for a computer. Now, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with being adversarial. Some people coming across saying I'm too aggressive, too uncompromising. I've been that way from the beginning because I understood the game being played. The Labour Party needs this buried because it implicates their senior politicians. And they also need to protect those who keep them in power. I got that from the outset. Maggie Oliver spent over a decade trying to work within the system before reaching the same conclusion. And for that, I will never criticise her. She deserves enormous respect for that, for trying the collaborative approach. Now she's pursuing private prosecutions because she's learnt what many of us have known all along. Collaboration with these people is a dead end. Thank you. And thank you for the offer of a laptop. It doesn't work like that, I'm afraid. I've got things set up in a way where I need something like 4 or 5 USB outputs out the back of a computer. Thank you for the offer. I'm afraid the way I've got things set up, I've got to do things in a certain way. So no, thank you. I'm pleased that Maggie Oliver is now pursuing private prosecutions because I'm going to name the people she should be pursuing those private prosecutions with immediately. And you've all heard her, and I'm not criticising, you've all heard her. I've been at this for 20 years, I know. Or words to that effect. Well, if you know, you don't need to get survivors to come up to you with more evidence. There are test cases you can go for immediately. And if you went for some of these test cases immediately, Maggie, and we got guilty convictions on these people, 2 things would immediately happen. One is more survivors would find the confidence to come forward and say this happened here and that happened there because they know finally people are being held to account. And secondly, you'd get more money to run more cases because people will say, actually, this is working. So on this, I strongly disagree with Maggie Oliver when she says victims and survivors need to come forward because she already knows, she already has the evidence to go after private prosecutions of a number of individuals. And I'll go through them. I will go through them. But private prosecutions on their own will not get to the truth. For that, we need a full independent national public inquiry because this is more than just about prosecuting public officials who failed. This is about getting to the truth of all of the places where it happened across this country, giving a space for all of the survivors to come forward, all of the whistleblowers to come forward, and for us to robustly test what happened, where, how, and draw some truths from all of this, because this nation has not got to the place of truth yet. Truth has to come before justice. We know these investigations cannot investigate themselves. Maggie has gone on that journey and now she accepts that as well. Time after time after time, those implicated in covering up industrial scale child abuse got to control the very investigations meant to expose them. If you follow my work, you'll see how frustrated I am at the actions of Tom Crowther, KC. He's been coming to Oldham. Look at Oldham Council right now. Tom Crowther's supposedly Telford-style framework has already had its independence gutted. The council decides who does what. Crowther himself talked about his Telford-style inquiry being as effective as it was because of its independence from the local authority, its independence from the police, its independence from those who are being investigated. Yet in Oldham, he's sat in a room sipping tea, maybe a Kipling's cake or a samosa, with Shelley Kipling and Arood Shah. Arood Shah is the leader of the council who tried to put me in prison by making things up because I exposed the cover-up and her role in it, including sitting next to Sean Fielding, the council leader, and shouting, yes, it is, to his allegation of barefaced lies. And then we've got Shelley Kipling, who was a senior player in the communications team of the council at the time when McMahon was in charge, who's now the chief executive. These people are neck deep in the cover-up. What is a KC who's supposed to be doing an independent investigation doing, sitting with these people to determine the terms of reference? No. Only a national public inquiry, truly independent, can break this cycle where politicians and officials implicated in protecting, and I use this term now, Pakistani rape clans. These networks of men weren't gangs, they're clan members, brothers, uncles, father's son, brother-in-laws. They operate as a clan. And that's what we're calling them. They're a clan. These people are continuing to mark their homework, and before we can have justice, we must have truth. And only a public inquiry will deliver that truth. And even then it might not, but we've got to work towards one, and which is why I am committed to working with anyone who can help us get up to that place. I sit on Rupert Lowe's inquiry. It's yet to get going, but, you know, I'm pleased I'm on that. I can help shape and direct that. And if Maggie Oliver wanted my help, she has my details, and I'd be there straight away. It is, isn't it? They're covering it up. So, let's move on to talk about who Maggie Oliver can and should go after. There are people Maggie Oliver can and should go after, and I'm now going to name them as long as my computer doesn't turn off. I'm going to get myself a Vimto. Give me a moment, and I'm sorry I'm not in flow as I normally am because of the technical glitches, but you're still all here, and I'm sure we'll continue and get to a place where we need to. So let me get a Vimto. If you're new to me, my name is Raj Amir. I've been at this for 6 years, and we're winning. I'm very clear, we're winning. If you find value in my work, redwallandtherabble.co.uk. Please, it's pinned at the top on View YouTube videos. Take a moment to sign up. It's completely free. You pay if you want to pay. You get the same anyway. Most people take it for free. Don't give me anything. I'm 100% community funded. No one else funds this work. And what little money I've got left, I think I'm going to have to go and buy a computer. Give me a minute and let me get a Vimto, and I'll be back. And please, yes, share, and let the whole world know. Please do that. Oh, I have hot Vimto. Yes, yeah. Sorry, could you hear my kettle? Yeah, I do have hot Vimto. I wish I could run it off my phone. Life would be easier when I just put my phone. No, I'm afraid it's. I'm afraid what I do is not possible that way. And if it is possible that way, I can't. I can't. She's more or less there, isn't she? I think she's more or less there with £125,000 that she's wanting to raise. You and I are not going to be friends. Vimto is disgusting. I don't drink that much. 3 bottles a week, wow. No, and I have it very, very water, thin, light. Okay. Operation Augusta and Operation Green Jacket. Remember, those were the things that Maggie Oliver made reference to. I'm going to start with the Greater Manchester Combined Authorities own website. The videos and age restriction is the video of the report. Publication of the CSE, so you can see that's their own web page. And this is to do with Operation Augusta, yeah? Officers conducting the initial phase of the investigation reported that there were potentially 97 persons of interest, that's where we all get the 97 from, who had been identified as being involved in some way in the sexual exploitation of children as a perpetrator, facilitator, or an associate of either. The scoping report of Operation Augusta described these persons as predominantly Asian men working in the restaurant industry. The review team independently identified 68 individuals known to Operation Augusta who it could reasonably be assumed had been part of this group. So they're talking about members of a grooming gang, not necessarily the customer base, which we know is, well, it's in the thousands, isn't it? But instead of them being prosecuted and the victims protected, senior officers prematurely closed Operation Augusta down in 2005 before it could complete its work. The review team's judgment, and remember these are Andy Burnham's boys brought in to manage the situation. The review team's judgment is that this was driven by a decision to remove resources from the investigation rather than a sound understanding that all lines of inquiry had been successfully completed or exhausted. Well, we know that's not the case because you just said there's 97 persons of interest and 68 individuals. Now, what they don't say is how many of those 68 individuals at the time before they shut it down, how many of them did they speak with? How many of them did they arrest? All of that is hidden. The review team concluded that they could offer no assurance that appropriate action was taken by Greater Manchester Police or the responsible local authority to address the risk in relation to 16 children in their sample, including Victoria Agoglia. So 16 children in their sample. We know there were many more children. But they looked at 16 children in their sample, children in care who were being abused as part of a rape gang. Victoria Agoglia, remember, had gone pleading for help before she was injected with heroin and killed. "15 of these children were the responsibility of Manchester City Council. So first of all, we've got Greater Manchester Police, and then we've got Manchester City Council. So I'm just writing this down. In respect of the remaining 9 children in the sample, the review team conclude that there was insufficient available information for them to form a view as to whether the children had experienced sexual exploitation or whether these concerns were appropriately addressed. Well, maybe if you'd spoken to them, you'd have been able to determine that, because they avoid making reference to whether they spoke to them or not, and my instinct tells me they didn't speak to them, either because they were prevented by the police or they just decided it was outside of their remit. Her diary did disappear for years. Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, said, so he's promoting himself. Yeah, I watched a 3 girls drama and I acted, blah, blah, blah. This is the bit I want you to focus on. The report makes extremely difficult reading. The fact that a new criminal investigation has been opened by GMP shows that it was right to commission this review, and I will ensure that it will have all the resources they need to give the victims they deserve. That police investigation's name is Operation Green Jacket. Okay, bear that in mind. So, as a consequence of that review, 3 police officers were referred to the IOPC, the so-called Independent Police Complaints Lot. It's not independent at all. I've been dealing with it for the last 5 years, and they've been avoiding investigating for that long. I'm not joking. Because if they investigate money, they end up in a place where the police officers were corrupt and involved in attempting to falsely imprison me. So I have direct experience of the IOPC, the Police and Crime Commissioner, and all of that. So 3 police officers got referred to the IOPC, and this is what happened. The police watchdog has defended ending an investigation into how 3 senior officers led an inquiry into child sexual exploitation. The Independent Office for Police Conduct, the IOPC, said it could not find out who halted the inquiry in Manchester. Puff. We don't know who did it. Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham said the IOPC investigation is inadequate. So even the mayor, the police and crime... This public inquiry comes, as you can see what's taking place here. When this public inquiry... We should be back. Yes, Tony. The IOPC said its probe was extremely thorough. The IOPC investigation was set up after Mr. Burnham commissioned a report following the 2017 release of the BBC documentary The Betrayed Girls. It focused on the death of 15-year-old Victoria Agoglia in 2003. She died of a drugs overdose 2 months later. Well, actually, no. Injected with heroin by a 50-year-old man. We know the demographic of that man, don't we? The IOPC said it never found out why the year-long investigation into child sexual exploitation in South Manchester was halted, and some former Greater Manchester police members did not engage with its work. So it couldn't even interview the people who were incriminated. On Thursday, it said it had discontinued its own investigation and found no evidence GMP breached any professional standards. That doesn't mean the evidence didn't exist. It found no evidence because it didn't have the power to go looking for the evidence, to compel witnesses, none of that. Mr. Burnham criticised the IOPC, saying he was very disappointed with this inconclusive and inadequate investigation, and victims had sadly been let down. It was now a matter for the Home Secretary, he said. Okay. So when we talk about freedom of information workshops, here we've got Andy Burnham saying that the IOPC investigation into the 3 police officers who had been referred for, they were identified as involved or potentially involved in the closing down of this investigation. He said it's inadequate. The IOPC admitted it's failed. It couldn't get people to speak to people, the police officers. And those who did said very little. So apparently it's now a matter for the Home Secretary. Okay. If it's a matter for the Home Secretary and the Police and Crime Commission, Andy Burnham, you would have, at the time of this statement, written to the Home Secretary, wouldn't you? Expressing your disgust at the actions of the IOPC and its inadequate investigation. And if you had written such a letter to the Home Secretary at the time, that letter, if you haven't published it, which I can't find, it would be subject to a Freedom of Information request. So we're going to come back and write a Freedom of Information request to Andy Burnham. And I'm sure a number of you will enjoy sending in identical or similar Freedom of Information requests in your own words to Andy Burnham or to the IOPC, and we'll do all of that on this matter. This is the problem with where they find themselves in, and this is why we've managed to do what we have done for as long as we have. We are honest people. We're truthful, we're honest, and you don't have to remember the truth. And the paper trail sorts itself out when you've done nothing but tell the truth. So Andy Burnham is on record for saying the IOPC investigation was inadequate. He's on record for saying it's now a matter for the Home Secretary. He's the Police and Crime Commissioner. He has responsibility here. Did he write to the Home Secretary? And if he did write to the Home Secretary, what did he demand? Oh dear. Oh dear indeed. It gets worse. So if Maggie Oliver wanted to go after someone, she could go, depending on what that Freedom of Information request brings back, along with everything else we know. Mate, I get this. But really this has got, the work I'm doing today has got very little to do with reform getting hold of local authorities, because it can't get hold of local authorities. I don't mean to be rude to you, Roy. It can't. Because there's no all-out elections, are there? You know, they've got one candidate, two candidate, three candidates who are standing in May. The most they can have in is, if they've won every seat in some wards, in some constituencies, the most they can have in is a third of councillors. I'll do a local council thing for you guys later. So I can hear the fan going again on this bloody thing. It's just had it. Right. So Maggie Oliver is as guilty as any of them, remember? Said Keir Starmer is as guilty as any of them. It doesn't work like that, Roy. When we get to the freedom of information, when we pull things out of them, and it is like pulling teeth, but all of this has been like pulling teeth. You've got to be systematic, you've got to be, you know, mannered in a way. I did, John. I said I'd go through the freedom of information request last week, and then I got a terrible migraine, and I've not been able to reschedule it. And I think I said yesterday that my plan is tomorrow or Thursday, so I will get through the FOI, but I don't think it'll be tomorrow because I want to try and fix this computer. So let's try and aim for Thursday. There's only me, I'm afraid, mate. There's no one else. I don't have a big team. There are people who do support me. You guys do support me, but no one does my reading, no one does my analysis, no one does the stuff I do. It's just me, mate. So, who do I think? She's already got the evidence, is what I'm saying to you, and she's already said she's got the evidence. So she should get on with it, shouldn't she? Senior cops in key positions when the Manchester child grooming case is dropped haven't been named until now. This is what they have to say. No, it's never mind, Rachel. I'm at ease with my computer. It's kind of, you know, I can hear it. It's not well, and I've lived with it for 10 years. I've had it longer than I've had a child. A small group of senior police officers were in key positions at the time of the decision to drop an investigation into Manchester sex grooming gang of up to 100 men who abused dozens of children, many of whom were in care. The officers were referred to, but not identified by name, in an official report into the scandal published on Tuesday. Today, and this is it's not a recent article, the Manchester Evening News reveals who they are. Operation Augusta was launched in 2004 following the death of Victoria Agoglia, 15, from Rochdale. Eight of the suspects went on to assault or rape other girls in the years after. This week, the official review of the episode commissioned by Mayor Andy Burnham said the investigation was closed down because of a decision to pull resources from it. The report refers to senior officers in key roles at the time by rank and title. An MEN investigation. The report doesn't name them, so the MEN went and found out who they were. An MEN investigation has learned the men are the retired Chief Constable of North Yorkshire Police, Dave Jones, who was the head of GMP's CID at the time, the current Chief Constable of West Midlands Police, Dave Thompson, who was then commander of GMP's City Centre Division, a senior figure at the National Crime Agency, Tony Cook, who was the Detective Superintendent and senior investigating officer on Operation Augusta. Retired Officer Steve Haywood, who was the head of GMP's Public Protection Unit back then. So you've got 4 names, all except Dave Jones responded to requests for information from the inquiry. So they responded to requests for information. They weren't interviewed or anything like that. Responded to requests for information. The 146-page report that follows states that at meeting in April 2005, an officer named only as Chief Superintendent A said he was unable to put permanent staff into Operation Augusta and that operation would finish on the 1st of July 2005. Remember, they knew they had 97 suspects at the time. And we also now know at least 8 of those 97 have gone on and offended since. Dave Thompson has now confirmed he was Chief Superintendent A. But he has insisted I would not have closed an investigation like this. Well, mate, the evidence is you did. That's him there. Chief Constable of West Midlands Police, Dave Thompson. Apparently he cooperated with the inquiry. How did he cooperate? Bring the donuts? The review praises aspects of the early investigation. When that's the early investigation, when they found out that the child gang rape was real. It's only when they decided what to do about it. Is it the praising stops. It reveals it didn't have enough resources from the beginning. Also, there were concerns among some at GMP that Operation Augusta, look at this. Also, there were concerns among some at Greater Manchester Police that Operation Augusta was focusing on a gang of largely Asian men, the report reveals. At one of its early meetings in July 2004, the force's communications lead, who, they won't say, was asked what effect a Channel 4 documentary on child sexual exploitation in Keighley, that's where this MP's from, do you see, edge of the city, may have, and concern was expressed about the risk of provocative tactics or the incitement of racial hatred, the report says. The report that concluded the independent review says there was much to be commended about the initial investigation, including that he had allocated one of his major incidents team to it and an embedded social worker. So yeah, we've got lots of good things to say about it until it came to the point of making the arrests. But the fundamental flaw in how Operation Augusta was resourced damaged the investigation. While there were other problems, there was no central responsibility for child sexual exploitation, and the crimes which had been uncovered spanned 3 police divisions, resulting in conflict about which division should provide the necessary officers. The force stressed at the inquiry that at the time the focus was on by the way, we were busy. One of the biggest police forces in the country were at the time busy on a racially motivated murder and the murder of a child in the city centre. We're busy elsewhere. Nah. The end of the child sex ring operation was signalled at a meeting of senior officers on April the 22nd, 2005, which concluded it would finish on July the 1st, 2005. This is Tony Cook. Apparently he cooperated with the inquiry. A note found in the policy log of the senior investigating officer, Tony Cook, reported that Chief Superintendent A stated he was unable to put permanent staff onto Operation Augusta and that the operation would finish on the 1st of July 2005. So that's a document evidence that exists. The official inquiry into the scandal requested a copy of the notes of the meeting, but GMP said that it could not be found. Later the same day, there was a Gold Group meeting of senior police and council figures. The inquiry requested the minutes of this meeting as well, but neither Greater Manchester Police nor the council could provide them. It was again the policy log of Senior Investigating Officer Cook which confirmed an update had been given and the end date of the op made clear. Dave Thompson, now Chief Constable of West Midlands Police, admitting being Chief Superintendent A to the Manchester Evening News, but he says he has no recollection of discussion about resources despite Mr. Cook's log. In a statement, "At this time, I was the local police commander for one district of the City of Manchester. I was not in charge of criminal investigations. I have never been involved in the Operation Augusta investigation. I have no recollection of an investigation which was led by Greater Manchester Police's Serious Crime Division." The report references from another officer's notes that I was at a meeting where resources were discussed. That's Chief Constable Dave Thompson. "Whilst I have no recollection of the discussion and no other documents are held by Greater Manchester Police in this case." How does he know that? "I do not believe any investigation of this type, initiated at a force level, would have been terminated by a local commander." It is clear Greater Manchester Police and Manchester City Council should have done a better job. As a member of the force at this time, I am very sorry we did not do a better job. However, I am clear I would not have closed the operation down. So that's him. The MEN understands Augusta's senior investigating officer, Tony Cook, now head of operations for child sexual exploitation. So this guy who was involved in this is now head of operations for child sexual exploitation at the National Crime Agency, wanted to focus on 25 victims to prevent the operation getting out of control. So one, it wasn't me. And the other one wanted to focus on not all the children, or let's pick some of the children, in case the investigation gets out of control. I think it's very clear, isn't it? I think it's very clear. What's going on here? He told the inquiry, in agreement with the Gold Strategic Multi-Agency Group, so that means the council, the terms of reference were kept deliberately tight and focused on a precise number of victims due to the scale of the task and resources available. I've never seen those terms of reference, by the way. I had concerns not only from our small team getting quickly swamped by a rising potential number of victims and offenders, but also that subsequent new reports could feasibly get allocated to the Augusta team. We're too full. We can't be investigating any more children being raped. In which case, we would... Sorry, I'm laughing because I'm trying to, I'm trying to deal with this myself. In which case, we could have had not only to investigate these, but also manage associated safeguarding risks with a very small number of staff. No minutes of the April 22nd Gold meeting at the Town Hall, attended by senior council and police officers with their respective communications officers, could be found. Although Senior Investigating Officer Cook's policy log indicates an update had been given, press strategies discussed, and the operations end date confirmed, the report reveals. The report says, finally, the investigation strategy placed too heavy a reliance on victims' willingness to make complaints. As resources and time ran out, activity became reduced to closing down the majority of the cases because the child declined to make a formal complaint. Critically, the problem with Operation Augusta had been set up to tackle namely the sexual exploitation throughout a wide area of significant number of children in the care system by predominantly Asian men, had not been addressed. Even though it went, no one was arrested. A commendation was... I should be back. So Dave Jones, I think, is where we're up to before it went. Just give me 1 minute for people to join and rejoin, and I'll carry on. In the meantime, whilst people are waiting or people are joining and people are catching up, sorry, I can only apologise. I'm seeing the... So I'm just reading comments. Yeah, I run a Mac, I'm afraid, Rachel. It's not a PC, so the Mac I've got isn't a tower. It's just one big unit with a screen with everything built in. It's I wish it was that straightforward. It's not, but you know, I will give it a vac at the back, and I'll try and clean it out. Maybe that will make a difference. We are back, aren't we? Sorry, I'm just refreshing my other computer. I can talk to you on the other computer, which is where I monitor the stream from, but that's a laptop I use. It hasn't got enough inputs. Yes, I know it's still got a CPU and GPU. What I tried to say is it's not just something I can just take out like a tower. You can just unplug it, can't you, and dust it out and stuff. No, this is a one sealed unit. It's a big sealed screen. Dave Jones, who retired as Chief Constable of North Yorkshire Police, is understood to be the officer, Detective Chief Superintendent A. He could not recall. He did not respond to the MEN. And Steve Haywood, who was allowed to retire from Greater Manchester Police, being accused of lying to a public inquiry. So he was allowed to retire after he was accused of lying to a public inquiry into the fatal shooting of police shooting of Anthony Granger, is referred to only as Detective Superintendent B, the head of public protection at Greater Manchester Police in the report. He did not respond to a call from the MEN. Here we go. Retired cop accused of lying at Anthony Granger. Public inquiry earned £250,000 whilst he was off sick for 18 months. He declined to be interviewed, but told the inquiry in a written statement about his responsibilities at the time and that he could not recall details of Operation Augusta. The detective inspector in charge of the original scoping exercise, believed to be Mark Wildig, was absolved of any blame by Maggie Oliver. He cooperated with the inquiry. And this is the kicker. Chief Constable, so the guy at the top, Mike Todd, that's who was in charge right at the top. They describe him as the charismatic leader of Greater Manchester Police at the time, was found dead near the summit of Snowdon in North Wales in 2008, from where he was sending distressing text messages. An inquest returned an open verdict, and an investigation by West Midland Police concluded he had not put GMP at risk, despite his reputation as a Lothario. The inquiry interviewed 39 women he knew. It is unclear what role, if any, he played in shelving Operation Augusta. When the MEN contacted Sir Peter Fahey, who replaced him, he repeated what he told the authors of the inquiry report. He could not recall the ITV interview. And that's an ITV interview where in 2014 he said he was quite happy to look at Victoria Agoglia's death again after her grandmother, Joan, had said, "These men are still walking about. She needs to be put to rest, and I hope if anyone is watching and they do know something, even if it's the smallest thing, to come forward so that social services will know there's a lot of people that still know they never helped these young girls." He can't even recall the interview. He said he believed the Agoglia case would fall under one of the reviews which were instated following the jailing of the Rochdale sex grooming gang in 2012. It clearly wasn't, he said. I gave my recollection to the inquiry and fully cooperated. What does fully cooperating mean for these guys? I took donuts to the meeting. As well as examining the past, we need to look at what is happening now. We need to move on. Lessons have been learned. Blah de blah de blah de blah. So I think straight away you've got a number of individuals. Maggie Oliver, I watched that interview. Some of you asked me to go and watch yesterday. She clearly focuses on Operation Augusta. Well, Maggie, you were the whistleblower on Operation Augusta. You've raised £125,000. You've got clearly a number of police officers. You don't need survivors here, Maggie. You don't. Because the failings here are of these police officers or of that moment in time. You've also got Manchester Council neck deep in it because the people can be identified who are involved at that time in that gold meeting. There are people you can clearly go after and have a public prosecution, a private prosecution against police officers. Now, I believe if she went after these people, the entire nation would back her. Don't you? Now, if I was Maggie Oliver, this is what I would do. I would simultaneously go after a number of individuals. And of course she could name them all. And she should name them all. She should, Sheila. But that's where I'm different. These people are named in the public domain, for crying out loud. You've just got to go looking for the documents and join it together. Agreed, Fiona. 100% agreed. So there's a cohort of police officers whose identities have come out in the public domain that she could and should go after. You don't need to put the onus on survivors. We criticise the police and the authorities for saying it's up to the survivors to come forward. Therefore, absolving our responsibility in this. Well, it's the same for us, surely. We can't now say survivors need to come forward when we already know who's involved. Survivors might come forward and also identify other people, but I think that can be for a later stage. Because we need a win in this, Maggie. The public need to see something to happen. And there's enough here. So you've got a group of police officers. You've then got whoever was involved in Manchester City Council at the time. So that's Manchester pinned down. You got Samantha, the young lass Samantha from Telford. The chief executive of Telford, or the leader of the council of Telford, went on to become an MP. And I've seen Samantha and others criticise him, writing to the government, trying to block a public inquiry, trying to say there's nothing to see here. Go after him. The evidence is there. Go after Jim McMahon in my own town. Go after McMahon. The evidence is there. And if there's anything we can do to help you with that, we will. There are towns, key towns and cities across the country where you can handpick and simultaneously go after police officers, politicians, and council staff who were involved in either failures at the time or complicity in the cover-up. So no, I disagree completely. We should not be putting the onus on survivors to come forward with evidence. We have the evidence. 15 years of work, Maggie, you've done. More than anyone else here, the evidence is there. If this is genuinely about private prosecutions, the system has failed, then we need to stop putting the onus on survivors. This cannot be survivor-led. Survivor-led and evidence-driven. What nonsense is that? The survivors do not identify those officials who failed them in complex ways. They'll never have even encountered them. The survivors would never have encountered any of these police officers. And no, going after the social workers and those at the lowest level, that's easy. It's the people who made the decisions to close down the investigations, the people who made the decisions to cover the stories up. And so, whilst we're all still here, and sorry, yesterday was a pitiful day for me. Yeah, indeed, Kevin Fitzpatrick, the BBC guy. Yeah, go after these people. If you're finding value, I'm just looking at the coffees and stuff this evening. Not a lot. I don't blame you because of the glitches, but please, if you're finding value in the work I do, please sign up to Redwall and the Rabble. I'm hoping you're seeing how I, even with the interruptions, how I take you on a journey and join the dots up for you. So you see what is taking place. And I'm naming names. Maggie should be going after these people. But I think coordinated from across different parts of the country, Telford, Manchester, Oldham, Rotherham. We've got the names. We know what they did. Yes. Exactly that, Carl. And just so you know, we talked about freedom of information requests and we've pinned down Andy Burnham. Well, now I think we should pin down Greater Manchester Police. Remember Operation Green Jacket? So this was released in February, 7th of February. Greater Manchester Police make the 70th arrest in pursuit of suspected non-recent child sexual offenders in Greater Manchester. So they're confirming this is the 70th of arrest. Yesterday morning, specialist detectives executed a warrant in Chadderton, Oldham. So straight away, this is linked to Operation Green Jacket. It's to do with the Manchester City, South Manchester. But look at this. A 77-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of indecent assault. It's to do with Operation Augusta, you can see. The South Manchester area in the 2000s. So that's what Green Jacket was, the reopened case. At the time of the alleged offence in 1994, The man was a social worker for Manchester City Council. He was a social worker. And then next month in March, Operation Green Jacket will hit an important milestone with its first trial. And of course, its first trial is not a member of the Pakistani rape gangs. It was Christopher Oates of Stockport. And I'm not taking away from the horrible stuff that these people are doing, but they're not the same. Because these people weren't protected in the same way. So, they went and arrested. Operation Green Jacket went and arrested. 70th of arrest. It's to do with the operation they shut down in the South Manchester area in the early 2000s. And the person they've arrested worked for social services for Manchester City Council. You couldn't make any of, you couldn't make this up, could you? Now, what would I do with that information? I'm very clear. If Greater Manchester Police are celebrating their 70th arrest under Operation Green Jacket, and we know Operation Green Jacket was a consequence of the failings identified in Operation Augusta, and you've arrested 70 men or 70 individuals, I would submit a Freedom of Information request to Greater Manchester Police for the demographic breakdown of the 70 men they've arrested. How many of them were Pakistanis? How many of them have the police determined, never mind how many of them, are linked, have immediate family connections with Labour Party politicians in towns and cities across Greater Manchester? And that's another FOI request I'd send off. How many of them have been charged? How many of the 70 that they've celebrated have been charged? How many of the 70 were known to them during the time of Operation Augusta? And it doesn't matter if they say that. You need to understand, it's okay. Let them refuse. Because we are at this, you got to understand what we're trying to do. If they hide the evidence from us, it only grows our numbers as more and more people come on board, because more and more people become outraged. They've identified, they've celebrated, they've arrested 70 people. Surely it's in the public interest to know the demographic breakdown of these 70 people. And also how many of the 70 they've charged. No, it doesn't work like that. Again, it doesn't work like that. You're so defeatist, some of you. We never have got this far. Hopefully we're back one more time. So the evidence is there for her to proceed, is what I'm saying. She said she knows who the names are. These names are in the public domain. They've been in the public domain for some time. My viewpoint is that putting the pressure on survivors to come forward to aid with this is really unfair. I think it's time we need to do something. Maggie needs to do something. Proceed with the private prosecutions of the people we know she knows that we can get somewhere with. And then if we are successful, and I believe we, hopefully we can be successful. And there's a whole host of issues with private prosecutions that I'll get into a later date, including how easy it is for the system to shut them down. Basically, the CPS can take them over and just close them down. There's no need to delay any longer on this. She's raised 125,000, give or take. She knows who the people are, and the country is behind her, and it's time for courage. You've shown so much courage. It's time to dig a little bit deeper and go again. And of course, we will submit the FOIs, and we will harass and harry and cause a nuisance of ourselves. Agreed, Sheila. So that's me done for the evening. My apologies for the intermittent service. I'll clean up my computer. I'll try again, and hopefully we can get it fixed. And if not, I will have to go and well, there's a millionaire out there who's bankrolled me apparently. No, please, if you can, the again this evening, the sign-ups and the subscriptions have been I think 2 or 3 people. 3 people will class it as. There's one incomplete that I'm sure will be completed. So thank you to those 3 people who've signed up. That's showing up so far. Evan, you go and top up your wine cellar, and I will put this night behind me. But you know what? In all honesty, we've come such a long way. We are now a small step away from Maggie just going for him and saying, you know what? These are the people that we're first going to go for. Here are the police officers. Here are the council staff, and here are the politicians. Front and centre, my brother Jamal. A very good evening. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011 he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.